thank you, Angie, for that introduction, and just to say what a pleasure and an honour it is to share the platform with Francis, Dave, Emily, Beverly, Maura and Angie today, as people who really do care about our NHS, the people who work in our NHS, and are showing today the unity of purpose of all of us in defending our National Health Service. Before I became an MP, I was working with National Health Service employees. I was an officer of the National Union of Public Employees, which is now part of Unison. And what it taught me was that incredible spirit of team there is in every hospital, of porters, cleaners, nurses, doctors, admin workers, security staff, everybody else who works so hard in it. And those members of my union and all the other unions, they came from all over the world. They came from all parts of this country, all parts of Europe, and indeed all parts of the world. And they have this incredible determination to deliver a health service free at the point of use for everybody. On the 23rd of June, we've got a very big decision to make. I value our NHS and the dedication of its staff. I would not be voting for Remain if I thought there was any risk whatsoever to our National Health Service. We're here today to say what the risk is if we leave on the 23rd of June. The NHS, our National Health Service, is Labour's proudest creation. It was brought into law in 1948 by a man with real vision, Nigel, by a government with real vision about providing a reasonable and good service for everybody. Healthcare as a human right, not a privilege to be paid for, which is what happened before. And it's lasted all these years because people love it and value it. But there is a crisis in the NHS, a crisis of the making of the Tory government. The NHS is now in record deficit. What's damaged the NHS is the top-down reorganisation that was imposed by this government, having said they would never do that, and then, on top of that, the insufficient funding of so many of our services. There isn't time to give you all the examples, but I'll give you just a few. They've cut mental health budgets, despite the mental health crisis that exists in this country, despite the high levels of suicides, particularly amongst young men. They've cut nurses and midwives' bursaries. Last week I was in Birmingham as part of the campaign I'm doing in every major city in this country, talking to nurses who were about to graduate. They benefited from the bursary. And I asked them a number of questions, and indeed they asked me a lot of questions as well. I asked them, could they have undertaken this course had there not been a bursary available? Every single one of them said no, they could not have done. We would have lost them, their skills, and all of our population would have been the poorer for the loss of their determination and their skills. And what they said to me was, we want to protect the bursaries for the next generation. They're the real dedicated people in the NHS. This government has also slashed social care for the elderly and disabled, often making it unsafe to discharge patients from hospital, thus causing bed blocking and much greater cost than it would if the adult social care services were universally and properly available. They've also been opening up the NHS to be used by more and more private patients under the Health and Social Care Act. And they picked this awful fight with the junior doctors, which they eventually had to negotiate with them to try to come to some agreement. Those are just some examples of cuts that have taken place in the NHS. All the while, this government has been cutting taxes for the super rich, cutting taxes for big corporations, and doing precious little to close down tax havens where that money is siphoned away from this country that ought to be spent on our public services. The crisis would have been even worse if many on the Leave side had had their way. There are people leading that campaign who have argued against the NHS and free healthcare on demand as a principle. As Francis and Dave have pointed out, the same people have the audacity to now portray themselves as saviours of the NHS. Many of them don't even want there to be a National Health Service. Aaron Banks, the millionaire funder of the Leave side, said, and I quote, "If it were up to me, I'd privatise the NHS." Nigel Farage, as Francis pointed out, called for an insurance-based system to replace the NHS, ending the universal principle. Michael Gove, co-author of a book that says the NHS is no longer relevant in the 21st century, a book which calls upon the NHS to be replaced by a new system of health provision in which people would pay money into individual health accounts. Imagine the inequalities that would come as a result of that. Imagine those who couldn't afford to pay the money into an individual account compared to those who could. He doesn't understand. The principle is that it's there for everyone, equally, when they need it. And it's there for all of us to pay for it because we can afford to or we cannot afford to, but we pay into it in proportion to our income. He doesn't understand that simple, basic decency principle. And Boris Johnson, who said, if people have to pay for NHS services, they will value it more. Really? Really? I meet people every day who use the NHS. Some are very poor. Some are homeless. Some are better off. They all equally value the dedication and the way they're treated equally by all the NHS staff. Thank you to all of you. I've got this message for those people. We value the NHS. It's our NHS. My party, the Labour Party, values the NHS. We created it, and we're going to protect it from the people like Michael, Nigel and Boris. We're going to protect it there for all time. Healthcare, free at the point of use for everybody. A vote to leave is a vote that will put the NHS in jeopardy, in the hands of those who want to break it up and end it as a service free at the point of use. They've now admitted that a vote to leave will hit the economy. Less tax revenue will therefore not be available to fund the NHS. The IFS, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, predicts that to meet the government's deficit targets would require billions more in austerity. Around 10 billion of cuts that will fall on the NHS. So there are things we make demands of this Tory government and of what we will do as a party. Repealing the Health and Social Care Act, an act that was designed to open up our National Health Service to more privatisation. And all those people that are now showing this faux concern for the NHS all supported that piece of legislation. It's Labour and our MEPs and many others who fought to exclude the National Health Service from the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. I want to go further. I want to protect all public services threatened under TTIP. I want to challenge what TTIP is about. And, as Francis pointed out, we can oppose TTIP more strongly if we're part of the European Union to help stop it and what it will do, not just to our public services, but to public services all across the country. Said, and I quote because it's no longer available to be seen, we send the EU £350 million a week, let's fund the NHS instead. Well, there are a couple of problems with that. Firstly, the UK Statistics Authority says the slogan is misleading and told them to stop using it. They're very diplomatic, actually. When they say misleading, they mean downright dishonest. It's an outright lie. That ridiculous message has now been lost, but it's retained for posterity on photoshops all over the country. But they've been forced to repaint the bus. Nice. Does anyone really believe that those on the hard right and the Tories and UKIP will spend any extra funds on the NHS? Every day I turn on the radio, and every day I understand that Any area that is funded by the EU and might therefore lose its funding if we leave is somehow or other going to be magically funded. And so this morning they promised that farming subsidies will be maintained, that potholes will be fixed, tax breaks for their rich friends no doubt will carry on, and that science budgets and so on will be protected. They know it's not true. They know they're talking nonsense, but they keep on saying it. But it's not just me that's saying that. Dr. Sarah Wollaston, Conservative MP, former GP, till last week she was supporting the Leave campaign. And this is what she had to say. I could not have set foot on a battle bus that has at the heart of its campaign a figure that I know to be untrue. Dr. Wollaston is now supporting the Remain campaign. She said she feared what would happen to the NHS if we left. She called it, good quote, the Brexit penalty. Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson really are wolves in sheep's clothing, using this concern for the NHS to mask their real agenda. The NHS is one of the greatest achievements, not just of the Labour Party and many others, but of the whole country. The NHS has helped me, my family, everyone in this room has been helped in some way or the other by the NHS. We don't go through that. We don't go through life in this country being frightened of the cost of healthcare. We're all fearful of illness. That's a normal human condition. But we don't have, heaped on top of that, the idea that we couldn't possibly have paid for the care we're going to receive. It's not like that on the other side of the Atlantic. It's not like that in many other parts of the world. They said a lot about immigration and about foreign nationals. I want to use this opportunity to say a big thank you to the doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, many, many other skills that work in the NHS and contribute to our country and save lives. They come from all over the world. They've given us fantastic service, and we welcome them, we work with them, and we're proud of what they do. $52,000 of them are nationals of other EU member states. 52,000. What's the answer? Johnson, Farage and Gove have got to that. The NHS couldn't afford to lose 52,000 dedicated professionals and still deliver the service we need. They should think about these things before they shoot their mouths off in the way that they do. Don't just listen to me, listen to every NHS workers' union. They understand it. They've come to a decision, as Dave pointed out, a hard-headed, rational decision. By deciding the risk to leave is very great. The damage to public finances caused by leave would risk the NHS, and those who would scrap the universal NHS free at the point of use will then be catapulted into the headlines and the front of the political debate. Quite simple, the NHS is a force for civilisation. If, like us, you care about our health service, then listen to the dedicated staff here today. Dedicated to the NHS and dedicated to remaining part of Europe in order to defend our public services and work with others for a better continent, better workers' rights, better conditions all across the continent, not the race to the bottom that's all that's offered by the other side. So please use your vote on the 23rd to remain. Please use your vote on the 23rd to support, defend and protect our National Health Service. Thank you.